This can grind all of our gears. We can come up with quotes all over the place, but we do have other questions to get to, gentlemen. And this one from Lisa. Not sure if this is a good question. That's from her, not from me, because I think it's a good question. From what I'm seeing on other sites and apps, there is so much information coming out about children being rescued from human trafficking rings, their treatment, and being in the dark for so long. Is there any way to confirm this is happening or discuss how they're doing after they're rescued? I realize the safety of operations is crucial, but just curious if you can speak on this crisis of human trafficking.
Well, we have to remember that the initiative against human trafficking was completely from Trump. He didn't even run on it. But as soon as he hit office, he said, I'm going to fight against human trafficking. And he made it a major priority of the various law enforcement institutions. And although there were some other priorities of his that they pushed back against, but in this one, they said, hey, they bought into it. And the fact is that since Trump started that initiative, there's been a tremendous amount of major raids on human traffickers and a lot of children that have been rescued. Now, in terms of and the raids were publicized, but the press didn't have any interest in amplifying it because it was a Trump initiative. So, and then even now that there's one or two under Biden since then, it's just a continuation of that initiative, and there were cases that were developed over months and years. So it's basically a Trump thing, and therefore it's not going to get the credit that it deserves, sadly. But the fact is, it's extremely important. I mean, stopping human trafficking ends up ramifying into a lot of areas of law enforcement because the way human trafficking works is that you create corridors where people can be trafficked, where people can be conveyed. And it's like the underground railroad of evil. And so, and that undermines law enforcement in all kinds of ways. If we need to have a country, we don't need to have cameras on every corner like they have in Britain. But we need a country where we have pretty much an idea where people are. And if you have all these hidden places where people can be stored and abused, it really undermines civil society in a very big way. So it's a very important thing. Now, in terms of following the people after they're rescued, it's been a pretty much of a pattern within law enforcement. And to their credit, I think the press has honored it, which is that they want to give the people the space to recover without a lot of attention. Because most of these people are very damaged and they need to build up their self esteem or any sense of self, really, if they've been just dominated for often long periods of time. And so the pattern has been, and as much as it's true that it would be beneficial, and occasionally, like let's say Elizabeth Smart, who was kidnapped for some years, and then she was later strong enough to go around and speak about it. But she's an exception. Most people are not strong enough. They have to be allowed to continue their lives in private, and we respect that. So we admire people like Elizabeth Smart, and it's a great service that they do. And the late Anne Rule also, she wrote these true crime books. I used to correspond with her, and I always told her that when you get to heaven, they're going to show you a lot of girls whose lives you saved by writing your books because it's important for people to understand that these things are going on. And so, to that extent, we do need publicity. But we also need to let the victims heal at their pace and in privacy to the extent, uh, you know, to the point where they're ready to say, no, I can speak. That's something different.
To continue that, I think there's a number of task forces which exist. There's some articles which come out on this. I know there are organizations and homes which actually are set up for women to be essentially deprogrammed and recovered. One of these is in Georgia. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but I think that there's been a significant effort by the previous administration to do this. And I think that for obvious reasons, I know for a fact from talking to certain organizations, they do not share their tradecraft for obvious reasons, nor do they allow for the tracking of individuals who are recovered. So it's a bit murky, but I think it's a good thing. That's about all I can say about it.
If I would just chime in. It's interesting. The Department of State has a page on a web page on human trafficking, and of course, for the last 20 years, there's been a Department of State report filed annually on human trafficking, what we've done, what the United States has done with other nations around the world. There is an awful lot that is going on, human trafficking that's going on. The estimates are tremendous. Some estimates run as high as 25 million people who are currently controlled by human traffickers around the world. Granted, that's an estimate, but it is of that scale. And I believe the last hard data we have, I think it's from 2019, over 100,000 people were mostly young women, but women and children who were rescued from human trafficking organizations in just that year. So it's a tremendous problem, and it's just going to require an awful lot of work to fix.
Yep.
Pete, that's a horrific statistic. It saddens me to hear that. And human trafficking is horrific. One of the things I think that's important, one of the best ways to limit human trafficking, because a lot of it happens physically over borders, is to have a secure border. And I think this is one of the most disappointing things about the politicization of border security. And you see the Joe Biden administration stopping the construction of the border wall and telling all of our law enforcement officers on the border to stand down in certain capacities. A lot of human trafficking happens with these coyotes and these other individuals trafficking people into and out of the country. And I think if we had a more secure border, we'd be able to do something about this. I think that could be the most readily approachable way to address some of this and get that statistic down. So it's a real shame that this has been politicized.